Alright, you lot, you ready for another deep dive into Activision's corporate bollocks? Because today we're exposing the biggest load of PR fluff lies I've heard in a long time. Insider Gaming sat down with Charlie Olsen, guy who literally built MMR system ruining Call of Duty. And shocker, he spent an hour dancing around truth while trying to convince us everything's fine. But I've gone through every single word of that podcast, and I'm here to call out bullshit piece by piece. You won't believe what this guy accidentally admitted. But before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe and all that bollocks. It helps the channel grow. Now let's tear this PR stunt apart. Right, so let's start with main man at hour. Guy at centre of this entire mess, Charlie Olsen. Who is he? And more importantly, why should we not trust a single word he says? Charlie Olsen's a former Activision developer, specifically for Treyarch, and he were one of the key architects behind MMR system that's been strangling fun out of Call of Duty since 2016. He worked on Call of Duty Online in China, where Tencent wanted a heavily controlled matchmaking system to manipulate player retention. That system, after proving it could keep people hooked for longer, were pulled into mainline COD series with Infinite Warfare and beyond. Then in 2020, Olsen left Activision and in 2022 started his own company, Invocation Games. And what does Invocation specialise in? Matchmaking systems. In other words, this guy sells engagement-based matchmaking solutions to game developers. His entire business model is built around convincing developers that controlled matchmaking is a good thing. This means he has zero incentive to tell truth about SBMM's negative effects. If he outright admitted that SBMM and MMR systems are designed to manipulate gameplay, his entire business would collapse. No publisher would buy his system if they knew it were turning players away from the games. So instead, he sits in interviews like this and carefully crafts a narrative that makes SBMM sound like an innocent feature, instead of engagement trap it actually is. And let's be clear, this isn't some rogue developer who had an idea that got out of control. This is a system designed to do exactly what it's doing. It's a corporate-approved, data-driven way to keep players on a treadmill, and Charlie Olsen profiting off it. So right away, this entire podcast is compromised. You got a guy whose entire career depends on SBMM succeeding, sitting there trying to convince us that SBMM ain't a problem. Yeah, put other one, mate. And it only gets worse from here. Because when we start dissecting what he actually said, we're going to see just how much of this was scripted PR nonsense, and how much of it proves that Activision is actively manipulating your matches. Let's break it all down. Now let's get one thing straight. Yeah, SBMM has existed in Call of Duty for years. Nobody with half a brain is denying that. But what Charlie Olsen wants you to believe is that today's SBMM is just an evolved version of what's always been there. And that, my friends, is absolute bollocks. SBMM used to be a light touch. In early days of COD, matchmaking primarily focused on ping, ensuring you got into a lobby that gave you a smooth experience. Sure, there were some basic skill-based elements involved, but they weren't there to control your experience. They were there to prevent absolute mismatches. Fast forward to 2016, this is when Olsen's MMR algorithm first poisoned well. It introduced a far more controlled system, one that actively tracked your performance and adjusted your matches based on it. This meant lobbies became more curated, less random, and more frustrating. But here's real kicker. 2019 is when everything went to absolute shit. That's when Activision cranked SBMM to max, ensuring that every game you played was some forced algorithmic attempt to keep you engaged. No more stomping lobbies, no more Christmas noobs, no more variety. Just same sweaty grind, every single match. And how does Charlie Olsen justify this? By claiming that it's necessary to retain players. But here's the problem with that argument. Players are leaving Call of Duty in droves. At one point in podcast, Olsen says no one has true retention data from old CODs, not even Activision.
People have this, when I was talking about rose-colored glasses, like, oh, but the old CODs didn't have SBMM and they retained players great. It's like, first of all, I don't think anybody has the true retention data. Like, you don't know what the active player counts were on the old CODs. Like, I don't know that Activision even knows that. So if somebody has that data, like, I would love to see it.
And that right there is a blatant lie. Activision absolutely knows how many people were playing older CODs. They have sales figures. server logs, player engagement metrics, and they know damn well how long people stuck around. Difference is, they didn't have to force retention back. Older COD kept people playing because games were fun. Modern COD keeps people playing because we're being manipulated. There's a massive difference between genuine player retention and forced engagement through matchmaking tricks. And what happens when people realise they're being manipulated? They quit game entirely. They refuse to buy it next turn. They rage against the system until it's too late for Activision to fix it. And here's irony of it all. SBMM was supposed to increase retention, yet it's done exact opposite. Just look at player drop-off rates. Call of Duty Black Ops has seen one of the fastest player declines in franchise history. And that's not because the game's bad, although, let's be honest, it's not great. It's because people are sick of this scripted matchmaking bullshit. And yet in this podcast, Olsen pretends like note's wrong. He acts like people complaining about SBMM are just being nostalgic, that we're all just looking at past with rose-tinted glasses. Mate, nah. We're looking at difference between a game that respected our time and a game that treats us like lab rats. SBMM were never like this before. This isn't about making matchmaking fair, it's about making engagement maximised. And that's where the real problem begins. Because if Activision were really interested in fair matchmaking, they wouldn't be capping players' progress. They wouldn't be manipulating your matches. And they sure as hell wouldn't be lying about it. Charlie Olsen tries to brush this off by making it sound like SBMM is just a simple way to match you with similar players. But truth is so much worse. This system doesn't just match you, it manages you. Now this is where things get really shady. During podcasts, Olsen admitted that COD's ranked mode uses a hidden MMR cap.
And I hate hidden MMR because it sets a limit, sets a cap on like where you're going to be. So this thing is going to learn your skill really quickly behind the scenes. And yet that's going to control where you can get to. Like it's not even like you're not earning points anymore. You're just revealing your MMR. It's just fake.
What does that mean? It means that no matter how good you are, system will only let you progress so far before it stops rewarding you properly. Your rank is just a reflection of your hidden MMR, and your hidden MMR determines where you're allowed to be. So if they can cap your skill in ranked, what's stopping them from doing it in casual play? Absolutely no. And guess what? They already are. You ever felt like you were improving, but your games weren't getting any easier? You ever gone on a winning streak, only to be suddenly thrown into an absolute hell lobbies where note feels right? That's not coincidence. That's system throttling you down to keep you engaged. You're not allowed to get too comfortable. If you do well, system immediately adjusts and throws you into matches that ensure you struggle. It's like rubber band effect. You're always being pulled back to designed level of performance. Here's where real PR gymnastics happen. Olsen goes out of his way to deny that Call of Duty uses full-blown engagement-optimized matchmaking. He even points to Marvel rivals, saying that their system actively manipulates player retention and spending behavior.
Like NetEase has published some papers on this. But like Marvel rivals, like their matchmaker is true engagement-optimized matchmaking. So you have like a function on the matchmaker that models player retention, models player spend, and they're putting you in matches trying to optimize for those variables.
But COD don't do that.
A few knobs on the rating system to kind of optimize revenue, but it's still not like modeling player behavior.
Yeah.
It's just like, what combination of knobs here give us the best outcome?
Excuse me? Knobs and dial. Mate, if you're fine-tuning matchmaking to retain players, then it is engagement optimized. They just don't call it EOMM because the note backlash would be insane. So what does this actually mean for you? It means that every game you play is being curated based on how the system thinks you should feel. You're winning too much, you're put into lobbies where you struggle. If you're losing too much, they throw you a bone and keep you from quitting. If system thinks you're close to leaving, it gives you an easy game to keep you engaged. This isn't a fair matchmaking system. It's a psychological loop designed to keep you playing. This is why COD don't feel fun anymore. It's cause you're not actually progressing naturally. You're playing a controlled artificial environment where the system decides how much fun you're allowed to have. Let's take a step back and think about how games used to work. You got better at a game by playing more, learning mechanics and naturally improving over time. That's how old CODs worked. Now, System is constantly adjusting itself to make sure you're always most engaging experience possible. If you start winning, you don't just move up to harder opponents, you get punished with artificial difficulty. If you start losing, you aren't just put back down into the lower skill bracket. Game eventually feeds you an easy win to keep you engaged. This means your skill level is constantly being managed, not actually improving. And if that sounds like a rigged casino machine, that's because it basically is. They've removed natural progression from multiplayer games and replaced it with manipulated experience where you only progress at rate they allow. And yet Olsen sits there pretending like it ain't a big deal. Mate, it's entire reason people are quitting Call of Duty. And trust me, it gets even worse when you talk about how SBMM ruins playing with friends. Back in the day, COD were a game where you could jump into a lobby with your mates, mess around and have a laugh. Some games would be intense, others would be an absolute stomp, and you genuinely have fun no matter what. But nah, that's completely dead. One of the worst things about modern SBMM system is that if you play in a party, it uses highest ranked player to determine matchmaking level. So what happens? If you're playing with a highly skilled friend, suddenly you're in absolute sweatfest lobbies where you don't belong. If you're best player in your squad, congratulations, you just condemned your entire team to hell. There's no middle ground. Game doesn't adjust based on balance average. It just throws everyone into deep end and lets you drown. And if you're a low skill player trying to play with a high skill friend, enjoy getting absolutely annihilated by pro level players, mate. This isn't just frustrating, it actively discourages people from playing together. So much for COD being a social game. Now, because of this garbage matchmaking system, a lot of people have resorted to workarounds just to make the game bearable. Some players rage quit lobbies until they get an easier one. Some players reverse boost by deliberately playing like absolute trash for a few games so the system puts them into easier lobbies. Others have even gone as far as using two-boxing method before Activision patched it to force easier lobbies for their friends. And you know what? I don't blame them. Because at the end of the day, people just want to play a game with their mates without feeling like they're in a ranked match every single game. But Activision sees all of this happening and instead of fixing problem, what do? They punish people who reverse boost. They ban two-boxing accounts. They tighten SBMM even more. All because they'd rather keep forcing engagement-optimized matchmaking than just let people play a game like a normal multiplayer shooter. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, cheating ruins everything even further. Since SBMM forces you into harder lobbies based on your MMR, that also means that you're more likely to run into cheaters as your MMR rises. That's exactly what happened when I played with my son. We jumped into some games together, lost 3 games in a row to blatant wall hacking aimbot using Terminator level cheaters who couldn't miss a single bullet. After those losses, we got thrown into a lower tier lobby, where he was so much better than average players that the mass reported him for cheating. So let's get this straight. You lose, you get punished. If you win, you get punished. If you just want to play casually with your friends, you get punished. What a brilliant matchmaking system, eh? Here's the thing, this is easily fixable. They could use an average at party skill levels instead of just basing it on highest player. They could offer a separate No-SBMM playlist so that friends can play together for fun without being forced into artificial difficulty settings. They could stop trying to micromanage every single match and just let people naturally enjoy the game again. But they won't, because the entire SBMM system is built on forcing player engagement. You get wrecked, you're supposed to feel determined to get better. You win, you're supposed to feel like you earned it. If you play with friends, you're supposed to feel like you're challenging yourself. But in reality, all it does is make people quit game entirely. COD used to be a game about jumping into matches and having a laugh with your mates. Nah, it's an exhausting rigged experience where every match feels predetermined. And as long as Activision keeps treating the players like manipulated lab rats instead of actual gamers, it's only going to get worse. And trust me, we haven't even got to absolute worst part yet. Because now we need to talk about how there's a very real chance that Activision is already filling COD lobbies with bots. Charlie Olsen would like you to believe that bots aren't a thing in mainline Call of Duty yet. That's what he says in podcast.
But also the other extreme thing is if they add bots. Like, to my knowledge, there are not true bot lobbies. Like, it's just tightly matched low skill players, but they're not injecting bots like they do in COD Mobile has bots. Like most Chinese games have bots. Like they're very comfortable with that.
Oh, really? Let's look closer at this. In China, Call of Duty Online, which Olsen worked on, had fully AI-assisted matchmaking system. This meant that if there weren't enough real players, game would fill lobbies with AI-controlled bots. And guess what? That same system exists in COD Mobile, another Tencent-powered engagement-driven free-to-play version of COD. Why does this matter? Because Activision is already using AI-generated bots in their games. Just a matter of time before they roll it into mainline COD, if they aren't already. And here's where it gets weird. First of all, let's talk about stories from players who've been in a match without actually being at the PC. I've had friends tell me they were seen in a game, despite the computer being on but untouched. How does that happen? Nah, it's not just a bug. Nah, it's not some weird replay glitch. It means that Activision has ghost accounts filling up lobbies. And here's why they do that. To maintain engagement, reduce queue time, and balance SBMM without players noticing. Still not convinced? Let's go back to SBMM paper Activision published. They admitted that players at lower end at skill bracket are too bad to be matched against mid-tier and high-tier players. So what do you think odds are that they hadn't already done that? Why would Activision add bots? Simple, to artificially manage engagement. If matchmaking system notices a high churn risk, aka you're close to quitting, it can simply drop some bots into your next match to make you feel like you're doing better. Lose 3 matches in a row? Next match is a few bots to farm. Struggling in a game? Here, have some AI control cannon fodder to make game feel more balanced. Too many good players leaving due to frustration? Built lobbies with bots to pad experience and make it seem like there are more players than actually are. This ain't crazy conspiracy shit. It's exactly what games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, and even Battlefield 2042 have done. And if you think Activision wouldn't do it, you're kidding yourself. This completely destroys integrity at game. If you're playing multiplayer, you should be playing against real people, not Activision-generated AI designed to keep you engaged. If you're earning kill streaks, you should know that you actually earned it, not that matchmaking fed you a few easy bot kills to keep you interested. If you're losing a game, you shouldn't have to wonder if enemy team has a few bots designed to even things out. Bad enough that SBMM is artificially curating your matches, but now we have to question whether every opponent is even real? Think about what this means for game integrity. Is your KD even real anymore? Are your matches even skill-based? Or is entire thing just a glorified engagement loop with AI filling in gaps? And if that don't piss you off, I don't know what will. If Activision ain't already using bots in COD multiplayer, there will be soon. Why? Because this is the next logical step in their engagement-driven business model. Warzone already uses AI enemies in DMZ mode. Zombies is built around AI-controlled combatants. COD Mobile actively fills lobbies with bots. Why won't they bring it into traditional multiplayer? And if you're still not convinced, ask yourself this. If Activision's willing to manipulate matches with SBMM, control skill progression with hidden MMR, and optimize engagement based on playtime data, what makes you think they'd stop short of adding AI bots? This isn't a question of if, it's a question of when. Now this next bit's where excuses completely fall apart. Every time players bring up idea a No-SBMM playlist, Activision and the defenders immediately shoot it down. It'd just become a sweat fest. Casual players won't be able to compete. It'd split player base. Bollocks. Absolute bollocks. These are the same weak-ass arguments we've heard for years, and they're done hold up under slightest scrutiny. So let's break it down. Excuse number 1. It'd just become a sweat fest. This is go-to cop-out answer from Activision's defenders. If you remove SBMM, all high-skilled players would flood into lobbies and ruin experience. First off, good. If a high-skilled player chooses to play in non-SBMM playlist, that's their choice. Nobody's forcing casual players to go in there with them, but it's reality. Not everyone would be in the sweat lobbies, because without SBMM, you'd get truly random lobbies. Sometimes you'd stomp, sometimes you'd get stomped, sometimes you'd have balanced games. You know, like how Call of Duty used to be. Real problem here is that Activision is scared to death of players experiencing matches outside of their rigged SBMM system. Because if players realised how much better game felt without constant artificial balancing, they won't go back. And that'd shatter illusion that SBMM is a good system. Excuse number 2. Casual players won't be able to compete. Oh, this one's a classic. We need SBMM to protect casuals. If you remove it, casual players will get destroyed. Again, bollocks. Casual players got along just fine before SBMM were cranked up to 11. Old COD still had plenty of casual players. Old COD still retained millions of players. Old COD still had balanced mix of players in every lobby. You know what actually protects casual players? Good game design, map knowledge, spawn systems that aren't trash, weapons that are actually balanced. You don't need forced SBMM to have a good experience. You need a well-designed game that rewards all skill level. But Activision don't want that. They want engagement loops, which brings us to the real reason they refuse to add a No-SBMM playlist. It's not about balance, it's not about fairness, it's not about casual players. It's about control. SBMM isn't just a matchmaking system, it's a player retention tool. Activision don't want you to have good games or bad games. They want you to have just right mix of frustration and success to keep you playing. They want you to feel challenged enough to grind. They want you to win just enough to stay motivated. They want you to lose just enough to keep chasing improvement. This is why they don't want no SBMM playlists. Because if you had choice to opt out, you'd realise just how manipulated your experience were afore. At the moment people experience true freedom, they stop accepting bullshit. And Activision can't risk that. Oh, and one more thing. This argument is completely ridiculous. If we had a no-SBMM playlist, it'll split player base and make matchmaking worse. Mate, Call of Duty already splits its player base with 20 different playlists. TDM, Domination, Hardpoint, Search and Destroy, Kill Confirmed, Party Mode, Warzone, Plunder, DMZ, Ranked. They have no problem splitting player base across a million different game modes. But suddenly, when it comes to removing SBMM, they get worried about splitting player base? Come on, they're full of shit. A no-SBMM playlist would work, there's zero doubt about it. Sweats would play against each other, casuals would stay in regular SBMM playlists. Matchmaking won't be any worse than it already is. And most importantly, people would actually have fun again. But that's the problem. Because once people realise how much fun Call of Duty could actually be, they won't go back to Activision's rigged engagement loop, and that's why they'll never give you a choice. Because once you see what they've been doing to your matches, you'll never trust them again. And trust me, this all ties into the biggest issue of all, how Activision's using SBMM to directly manipulate your in-game spending. SBMM isn't just about balancing skill levels, it's not about protecting casuals. It's a system designed to increase player frustration just enough to drive spending. And we know this because they've literally patented the system. Activision don't even try to hide it. Back in 2017, they filed a patent for matchmaking systems that manipulates lobbies to encourage in-game purchases. Here's how it works. Game identifies what weapons, cosmetics or bundles they don't have. It matches you against players who do have them, specifically people doing well with them. You get frustrated because you're being beaten by that new meta weapon or flashy operator skin. Suddenly a new bundle for that exact weapon shows up in store. You buy it, thinking it'll give you an edge. What happens after you buy it? Game adjusts your matchmaking so you actually do well for a few matches. You feel like purchase were worth it. But then system ramps SBMM back up and you're back in struggle cycle. Rinse, repeat. This is literally a patented system they developed to psychologically manipulate you into spending money. Why do you think every new season a brand new meta emerges? That one new weapon suddenly dominates every match. You feel forced to unlock it or buy Battle Pass. A week or two later, they nerf it. Another weapon takes its place. Repeat until next season. This isn't just bad balance, it's engineered to keep players chasing next purchase. And SBMM makes that manipulation even stronger, because when the system is actively controlling your wins and losses, it can make you feel like a purchase is a necessity, not a choice. That's why COD don't feel fun anymore. It's not a game, it's a behavioural manipulation system disguised as a shooter. Another psychological trick SBMM enables is strategic loss streaks. Ever noticed how sometimes you'll suddenly go on a brutal losing streak, where no feels right, your bullets don't seem to register? You feel like you're moving slower. Enemies are beaming you through walls. And just when you're about to gear up, a new skin, operator, or weapon bundle gets advertised. Maybe you buy it, maybe you don't. But here's what's really sinister. If you do buy it, the next few matches will suddenly feel easier. This isn't an accident. This is system doing exactly what it was designed to do, drive engagement through controlled frustration. You aren't just playing a game, you're being nudged into spending more. And I can already hear you. But if SBMM is so bad, why do people still play? Simple, because they don't realise full extent of manipulation. They think it's just skill-based matchmaking and that they need to improve. They think meta shifting constantly is just bad balancing. They think the performance is in their control, when in reality, the system is managing their experience to maximise engagement. And Activision wants it this way. They need players to feel they're improving, but not so much that they lose incentive to grind. They need players to feel frustrated, but not so much that they quit. They need players to believe that spending money will help, even though it never really does. This is why COD don't feel like COD anymore. It's not a shooter, it's an engagement engine. It's not a test of skill, it's a predetermined loop. It's not about fun, it's about keeping you playing for as long as possible while spending as much as possible. And SBMM is at core of this system. It ensures matches are difficult enough to keep you grinding. It adjusts your frustration level to push microtransactions. It manipulates your play experience to keep you engaged, even when you want to quit. And that's why they'll never remove it. Because at the end of the day, it's not about skill or fairness. It's about one thing, and one thing only. Money. And after all of this, after an hour-long interview with Charlie Olsen, a chance to address these concerns, what happened when it came time for real player-driven questions? Technical difficulties.
So unfortunately, this is an abrupt end to that interview with Charlie. We had some technical difficulties towards the end of the podcast, and unfortunately, the Q&A section with the forum questions just wasn't usable. So Charlie has said that if you have asked a question over on the Insider Gaming forums, then he'll go over there in the next couple of weeks and answer some of those. There is a few gaming events coming up that he will be attending, so he won't have the time.
Yeah, right. So let me get this straight. Entire interview were perfectly fine. Not a single cut, not a single issue. But moment they get to real Q&A, where actual players, not controlled interviewers, get to ask questions, all things suddenly becomes unusable. Absolute bollocks. Let's be real. They didn't want to answer those questions. They didn't want to deal with real unfiltered questions from players who actually know what's going on, so they killed segment. But hey, don't worry. Charlie Olsen promised to answer him on Insider Gaming Forum, you know, where he can cherry-pick safest questions, ignore real and control narrative. This whole thing were never about transparency. It were about feeding gullible masses just enough half-truths to make them stop complaining while making sure manipulation machine keeps running. And people will eat it up. Same shills who defend SBMM will call this interview insightful. Same smooth-brained morons will say, see, SBMM ain't that bad, you're just not good at game. Nah mate, we're past that. Truth is right in front of us. Call of Duty is not same game anymore. Not about fun, not about fair competition, it's not about improving as a player. It's about keeping you on engagement treadmill just long enough for you to spend money before you finally get sick of it. And here's harsh reality. It's never going to change. SBMM ain't going anywhere. Bots in lobbies aren't going anywhere. Microtransaction-driven matchmaking ain't going anywhere. Because as long as players keep buying into the cycle, Activision has no reason to stop. So what's the solution? Simple. Stop playing the game. Stop feeding machine. Stop accepting manipulation. Stop believing lies. Because as long as people keep engaging with rigged system, Call of Duty will never beat game it once was. And Activision knows that. They just hope you're too stupid to realise it. Right, that's enough of that. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this unfiltered tech down or Activision's bullshit, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, leave your comments and questions below. And if you want to support the channel even more, consider joining as a member for exclusive content. Links are in the description. Join Discord to continue conversation. Follow me on X to keep up with gaming bollocks happening in real time. And let's keep calling out nonsense in this industry. Might even feature some of your comments in a future video. I'll see you next time, you magnificent.